Chapter 9. I decide to mow the Pruitt's yard early because these days the temperature hits 90 degrees by noon, and I plan to spend the afternoon claiming the left side of Scarlet's swing. The smell of fresh coffee drifts up to my bedroom. When I make my way downstairs, I'm surprised to see Dad at the kitchen table in his t-shirt and plaid pajama bottoms. Usually he's dressed for work by now. His hair sticks up and out like a mad scientist, and dark half moons lurk below his eyes like he hasn't gotten a wink of sleep. Morning, he says, rolling the rubber band off the newspaper. Morning, I say, shuffling into the kitchen. This is my first day at a real job, a job that has nothing to do with worms. I figure that deserves some sort of initiation. I pour coffee in Mom's Grand Ole Opry mug. Suddenly I feel numb, and it dawns on me why Dad looks lousy. Dancing with Scarlet clouded my thoughts, and I had forgotten about Mom until now. When I sit at the table, a small smile pulls at the corners of Dad's lips. When did you start drinking coffee? I shrug, sort of embarrassed. I don't know, this morning. He picks up the sugar bowl. Sugar? Nah, I say. He watches, waiting for me to take a sip. When I don't, he looks down at the newspaper. I lift the cup and take a big swallow. It burns. Glancing at me over the paper, Dad smirks, then clears his throat and frowns, looking back at the paper as if he didn't notice me gagging. A moment later, he says, do me a favor. Take that bucket of soil on the back porch over to Gloria, and give her that sack of tomatoes on the counter, too. Dad must feel rotten. Mrs. McKnight is one of the few people he enjoys talking to. She likes hearing about the optimum temperature for worms, and he likes learning about the different types of roses. In Kyle's backyard, Mrs. McKnight hangs underwear on the clothesline. Mom says Charlie McKnight is too stingy to fork out enough money for a clothes dryer. Every member of the McKnight family is represented on that line except Wayne. There's Cal's small Fruit of the Loom underwear, Billy's larger ones, and Mr. McKnight's boxers. Next to them hang pink polka-dotted and solid blue panties. Mrs. McKnight grabs a red bra from the plastic laundry basket and clips it to the line. I'm wondering if the bra is hers or Kate's when she peeks around the boxers and notices me staring at the bra. My whole body blushes. Smiling, she says, "Oh, Toby, I didn't see you standing there." I try to speak, but the words stick in my throat like cotton balls. All I can say is, She glances down at the bucket. Did your dad send me some of that terrific soil? I think it's funny how people who like growing things call dirt soil. Yes, ma'am. She walks up to me and takes the bucket. Thanks, I'll return your bucket later. I hold out the sack and she accepts it. These two, she puts down the bucket and looks inside the sack. After taking a long whiff, she smiles. Ah, fresh tomatoes. What a good neighbor. Tell your dad thank you for me. She takes a few steps, then stops. My gracious, I almost forgot. How did your mother do last night? I'm not ready to explain because I'd have to confess I don't know when my mom will be back. The Grand Ole Opry had a fire and they postponed the contest. Oh my goodness, did anyone get hurt? Oh no, it only burned in the part where they were going to hold the contest. Her forehead wrinkles. Oh well, I see. They haven't rescheduled it yet. Mom's hanging around till it's over. Mrs. McKnight's smile makes my stomach knot up. Well, wish her the best of luck for me when you speak to her. I take off for the garage and wonder why I lied to Mrs. McKnight. She's the nicest person I've ever known, and I lied to her as easy as I did to my math teacher when I told him I forgot my homework. Only this lie makes me feel worse. Miss Murdy May's house is around the corner from ours on Cottonwood Street, so I don't have to drag the lawnmower very far. The Pruitt home is the biggest house in Antler. It stands green and tall behind two huge willow trees. Their house is the first one Cal and I hit on our Halloween route. Every year, Miss Murdy May dresses like Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz and gives out candy bars from the front porch. Her wrinkled face is a scary sight under that curly blonde wig and rhinestone tiara, but it's worth looking at her and putting up with her Glinda speech in exchange for an almond joy. Today, Miss Murdy May greets me at the door and tells me to wait in the living room with the judge while she gets her list. I'm hoping it's short because my big plans this afternoon at Scarlett's house. The judge sits there fumbling with his pocket watch. Before Miss Murdy May leaves the room, she says, "Brother, you remember Tobias Wilson, Opalina's boy? I'll be right back, Toby." The judge looks up and stares at me. His head is cocked sideways and a string of drool hangs from the corner of his mouth. Everything in the living room is either green or gold. Last year, Miss Murdy May hired a decorator from Amarillo to do over the entire house. Miss Murdy May accidentally left the decorator's bill out when Miss Gladys Tootle was visiting. $10,000. It was the talk of Antler until Christmas when Miss Murdy May and Miss Tootle competed with their outdoor decorations. They used so many outdoor lights the entire town lost electricity for a day. Old black and white photos in silver frames crowd a round oak table near the couch. One is of two boys about my age in old-fashioned baseball uniforms. Another is of a pretty girl with a bow in her hair, dark curls. I figured they must be from the good-looking side of Miss Murdy May's family. I'm taking a closer look at the photos when the judge says, "Young man." I turn. He squints at me. "This is the last time I want to see you in this courtroom." Glancing around, I realize he must be talking to me. "Judge, I think." He shakes his finger at me, and the string of drool has grown longer, stretching past his chin. "Don't talk, son, when I'm handing down a verdict. I'm tired of this nonsense. Now you're going to have to do some time instead of paying a fine." The front door is 6 feet behind me, and I'm tempted to escape this crazy old man. But I've got a girl now, and I'll earn more money today than Dad has ever paid me. The judge stands, leaning heavy on his cane. "Young man, do you understand me?" He inches toward me, back toward the hall, and duck my head around the corner. Miss Murdy May?" She returns, and it's the first time in my life I have been happy to see Miss Murdy May Pruitt. The sight of the judge breathing down my face doesn't fluster her at all. She pulls out a wadded tissue from her pocket and wipes his drool. "Brother, this is Toby. He's our new lawn boy. Remember earlier this summer we had that nice McKnight boy, William? And I know you remember Wayne before that." She turns to me. "Brother, loved Wayne. That youngest boy, though. He filled in for Billy once last year, and my heavens, you never saw such a mess. Patches of tall grass, weeds left in the flower beds." She clicks her tongue. "We couldn't have that." I feel bad for Cal. Maybe he knew the reason Miss Murdy May didn't ask him to mow her yard this summer. Miss Murdy May's hands me the list. 23 tasks are marked on it, and I wonder how I'm ever going to see Scarlet before the sun sets. "Come on," Miss Murdy May says with a quick wave of her hand. Her pointed navy blue shoes tap against the wood floor. I follow her into the backyard. As I scope out the grass carpet spread to eternity, I realize that the Pruitts not only have the largest house in Antler, but they also have the biggest lawn. Morning glories spill over the back fence. A stone path winds its way to a white gazebo, big enough for a high school band. 2 apple trees' branches droop, heavy with apples, and the fruit litters the ground beneath them. I glance at the list. Number 1, pick up the apples off the ground. Miss Murdy May points out the beds that need weeding. "Now, if you've ever in doubt if it's a weed or not, give me a holler. Better safe than sorry. I'll be in my dark room." She leaves me alone in the yard. Every green apple I pick up has a hole in it. I can't get away from worms. The vinegar smell of rotting apples on the ground makes me want to puke, and roly-polies invade the fruit like an army climbing over green mountains. Number 2, mow the lawn in an east-west pattern. The yard seems to go on forever, east to west, west to east. The mower roars and spits grass blades to the side. The smell of freshly cut grass fills the air. Halfway through the job, I decide mowing isn't boring if you make your own designs. I make a circle, a square, then a triangle. Nothing to it, so I move on to the more complicated forms. I zigzag along the fence. I make curlicues. I begin to spell Scarlet. I see Miss Murdy May peeking out her window, frowning at me. I stop in the middle of my letter S, east to west, west to east. About the time I finish mowing, Miss Murdy May comes outside carrying a silver tray with a glass pitcher of iced tea, some lemon drop cookies, and jiggly lime jello stuff. She must think we're going to have a tea party. Sheriff Levi follows her, his head and shoulders drooping like a kid ordered to go to church. Seeing him makes me think about Zachary, and I wonder what the sheriff will do if Polly Rankin doesn't return. "I reckon you deserve a break by now," Miss Murdy May says. Her bun is loose and weary gray strands stick out around her face. Sheriff Levi happened by at the right time. Sheriff Levi wears a pair of plaid shorts, a yellow knit shirt, and his lucky fishing hat decorated with tackle. "Well, actually, Miss Murdy May, I just came by to ask Toby something." I'm willing to bet he wants worms. Miss Murdy May acts like she can't hear him and proceeds down the stone path. Let's sit in the gazebo where there is plenty of shade. She sits in the white rocker and motions the sheriff and me to the chairs around the wicker table. I collapse in one of them, but Sheriff Levi keeps standing. He glances at his watch and his eye twitches. Miss Murdy May, this must be an inconvenience, me barging in on you and all. I really just want to get some. Nonsense, Miss Murdy May says. Now sit. Worms, he says, as his rear end meets the chair. It's too hot to eat anything warm, so I made my lime gelatin turkey salad. She slices a piece of wiggly stuff onto a china plate and hands it to me. My stomach feels queasy at the sight of turkey chunks floating inside lime jello. I glance at Sheriff Levi, and the way his eye twitches suddenly, the jello, I figure he feels the same way. I'm sweaty and not sure Miss Murdy May would approve of me using her nice fancy napkin to wipe the sweat from my forehead. I don't know what to do with that napkin, and I watch Sheriff Levi, but he doesn't seem to know either. So I wait for Mrs. Murdy May's cue. She flings hers open and drops it daintily into her lap. The sheriff and I follow her lead. Only when I fling my napkin, one corner lands in the pitcher of iced tea. I go to rescue it, only to knock my glass of ice over. Whoa, whoa, Toby, she says. Sit back. I'll get you a clean glass of ice. I want to tell her, don't bother. I'm filthy and sweaty and dirty. Ice won't hurt me at this point. In fact, any kind of ice sounds great. But she swiftly removes the glass and disappears into her house. Sheriff Levi leans over the table and whispers fast. Toby, can I help myself to some worms? I'm heading out to my secret fishing hole. Sure, Sheriff, help yourself. I'll leave the money in the tin can. No problem. Dad leaves an empty coffee can on the shelf so the locals can take what they need and leave the money in case we're not there. But Sheriff Levi always hunts us down before taking any. Miss Murdy May heads our way with my glass of ice, so I quickly ask, Sheriff, what can happen to Zachary Beaver if Polly Rankin doesn't come back? Sheriff Levi tips back his hat. I'll have to notify social services in Amarillo. What does that mean? He tries to steady his eye by raising his brows. He removes his hat and wipes the sweat off his forehead with a handkerchief. He'll probably be put in foster home or something, sort of home for juveniles. Oh, I look away. Some blurry white moths fly by, their wings fluttering in the breeze. I don't like Zachary Beaver, but I don't much like the thought of him living in some house with strangers either. Miss Murdy May hands me a fresh glass of ice. Here you go, Toby. Sheriff Levi shovels the salad into his mouth in quick, huge bites, then washes it down with iced tea, holding his head back as he empties the glass. Giant gulps move down his throat, then he stands and announces, Miss Murdy May, I hate to eat and run, but I forgot. Duke was waiting for me in the car. He grabs a couple of lemon drop cookies, tips his hat, and steps off the gazebo before Miss Murdy May can utter a protest. 4 hours later, I sack up the grass, then cross off task number 23. The flower beds are groomed and free of weeds. I feel proud. I'm different than Cal. I finish projects. I remember when Cal and I were five or six and we turned on the garden hose and made a mess in the mud. Wayne fetched Cal and cleaned him from head to toe with the hose before taking him into the house. I cleaned myself off. I don't have big brothers watching out for me. Before paying me, Miss Murdy May inspects the yard. She walks to each corner flower bed. Her eyes comb every grass blade, and when she spots an apple on the ground, she walks over and picks it up. It probably fell a second ago. She hands me my money and says in a sharp voice, Not bad, but next time, take care in the direction you mow. You shock the grass blades if you don't cut it in an east to west pattern. Can I expect you next week? My arms ache from pushing the lawnmower, my back throbs from bending over and picking up apples, and my hands have blisters on them from pulling weeds. I open my mouth and say, Yes, ma'am. Miss Murdy May asks me to step inside the house for a moment, and I am relieved that the judge isn't inside waiting to haul me off to prison. Smells of something wonderful drift from the kitchen. The TV is on and the early evening news broadcast from the jungle in Vietnam. I wonder if Wayne is nearby. Miss Murdy May shakes her head, looking at the television. Oh, that mess? I hope you never have to see War, Toby. Our poor Wayne. I include him in my prayers each and every night. She looks up at me like she has just thought of another list of chores for me to do. Told me, almost forgot about your mom. How'd she shake out? I don't even hesitate. The place where they were going to hold the contest had a fire, so her eyebrows shoot up. The Grand Ole Opry burned down? It was only a small fire, but they postponed the contest. She's waiting around until they reschedule it. I'm turning into a full-fledged pathological liar. Miss Murdy May lowers her eyebrows and frowns. I study the rug covering her wood floor. That a fact? She asks. Hold on, I'll be right back. She walks into the kitchen and I wonder if she's calling Dad to check if I'm telling the truth. But a moment later she returns with a pan covered with aluminum foil. Would you mind taking this German chocolate cake over to Mr. Beaver's place? He mentioned a fondness for chocolate. I leave with the pan, wondering how I'll manage to get it and the lawnmower home without dropping it. I also wonder how much daylight is left before my plans to see Scarlet sink fast below the horizon. As soon as I clean up, I'm going straight to Scarlet's. Mr. Zachary Beaver will have to wait for his cake. As I reach the bottom step of the Pruitt's front porch, I hear a creak. Stop right there, young man. I swirl around. The judge leans forward in a porch rocker, shaking his cane at me. You remember what I said, you hear?